Hello, everybody, and welcome to History/Law Bite number 317, dated October 9th, 2021. I'm Walter, your mobile historian and blue-collar scholar. Thank you so much for tuning in. This History/Law Bite is entitled Maryland Legends, Harry A. Cole, Maryland's first black state senator and appellate court judge. Before I begin, however, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Juarez Lee Shelton, M.A., as well as click on the little notification bell immediately to the right of the subscribe button. In doing so, you will receive notifications when I post new, exciting, and enlightening videos in history, law, political science, theology, and philosophy. Thank you so much in advance. So again, this video discusses Harry A. Cole, a Maryland legend who was Maryland's first African-American state senator and appellate court judge. Perhaps you've heard of him, perhaps you might have known him personally, or perhaps you might not have ever heard of him. In any case, I trust you will find this video on Judge Cole to be most interesting and most enlightening. So, Judge Harry A. Cole, 1921 to 1999, was a history maker in Maryland history, all right? And more specifically, a treasure within Maryland's African American history. He holds an honorable position of firsts, all right, in two branches of Maryland state government. In 1955, he became Maryland's first ever African-American state senator, all right, elected to that office by a very small margin, all right. And in 1977, he became the very first African-American to serve on the Court of Appeals of Maryland, which is our state Supreme Court. Cole was born in Washington, D.C. on New Year's Day, 1921, as one of 5 children. With the death of his father, who had been employed as a tailor, his mother moved the family back to Baltimore, her place of origin, all right? He attended Baltimore's public schools, as well as college at Morgan State College, now, of course, Morgan State University, and graduated in 1943 with a Bachelor of Arts degree. After college, Cole enlisted in the U.S. Army and rose to the rank of first lieutenant in the Quartermaster Corps. Very, very honorable position. He served from 1943 to 1946, okay? During this time, he saw action in both the European and Pacific theaters, which is very noteworthy, and received an honorable discharge from the service in 1946. Afterwards, Cole returned to Baltimore and enrolled in the University of Maryland School of Law, all right, graduating with a Bachelor of Laws degree in 1949. He was admitted to the Maryland State Bar in that very same year. Okay. Afterwards, Cole entered into public interest law, okay, specifically with the Baltimore chapter of the NAACP and working alongside fellow notable Baltimorean Robert Watts, who would go on to become a judge himself, all right? In 1953, Cole would begin working for the Attorney General of Maryland, all right? He was the first African-American to ever work as a lawyer in the Attorney General's office, okay? The following year, however, would prove to be the decisive one for Cole, all right? And this was the time in which he would attain the first of his firsts, okay? In the 1954 state elections, Harry Cole, who was a registered Republican, would successfully win a seat in the Maryland State Senate, All right, the first African American to ever do so, and by the thinnest of margins, like I told you above, by only 37 votes. 37 votes, ladies and gentlemen. Very small margin. He served honorably in that role until he was defeated in the elections of 1958. All right. To his credit, that year, however, he would become the very first chairman of Maryland's Advisory Committee to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. Very honorable indeed. As a part of his legacy, Judge Cole's election to the state Senate opened the door for a generation of black politicians in Maryland. Cole would unsuccessfully run for a seat on the Baltimore City Council in 1959, and afterwards went into private practice, where he remained until 1967, when Governor Spiro T. Agnew would appoint him to his very first judicial office, the Municipal Court of Baltimore City, which was the predecessor of the modern-day District Court of Maryland for Baltimore City. All right. That same year, Governor Agnew would elevate Cole to the Supreme Bench of Baltimore City, which was the predecessor of the modern-day Circuit Court for Baltimore City. During his 10 years on the Supreme Bench, he demonstrated the qualities of a pragmatic, responsible, and very even-handed jurist. It was also here that he demonstrated a profound interest in the rights of the accused and those incarcerated. All right. Judge Cole once dismissed the charges against anti-integration protesters, holding that their right to protest was no less significant or important than any other individual's right to protest, such as protesting for integration. All right. So, in 1977, however, Judge Cole would reach the pinnacle of his career when he was appointed by Governor Blair Lee as an associate judge of the Court of Appeals of Maryland, which, of course, once again, is our state Supreme Court, for those who do not know. In being chosen over 4 other candidates, Harry A. Cole thus became the first ever African-American member of Maryland's highest court. His swearing in coincided with the commemoration of the court's 200th anniversary as the highest judicial body of the state of Maryland. All right? And that is something to which Judge Cole remarked, the fact that this appointment comes after 200 years could be an indictment of it in itself. He was referring to the state's long history of exclusion of African Americans from the practice of law and the judicial branch, most significantly. So over the next 14 years on the Court of Appeals, Judge Cole continued his legacy of being a brilliant, fair, balanced, and pragmatic jurist, as mentioned above. You know, his unending concern for the rights of prisoners and the general constitutional rights of all arguably manifested itself at this level of his career. Former Chief Judge Robert C. Murphy, with whom Judge Cole served his entire time on the Court of Appeals, remarked that Cole was, quote unquote, a good dissenter, and that he liked to dissent. To understand what Murphy meant by that statement, one must understand appellate judicial work. Dissents come about, of course, when one or more members of a court disagree with the majority's conclusion in a case. As such, dissents allow the dissenting judge or justices to speak passionately and at times very personally from the heart as to why they believe the majority's opinion is erroneous in its conclusion of law. That is why Judge Cole loved to dissent, all right, as he could express his views without having to accommodate the views of other judges, as one has to do in a majority opinion. So his legacy on the court thus tended to be one which favored the vulnerable in society, as well as those who were regular recipients of discrimination. He was also quick to point out discrepancies in the law, which, while in theory provided equality, fell far short of that result. All right? In 1981, he authored a unanimous opinion affirming the power of the state of Maryland to fund abortions for women of limited economic means. Judge Cole emphasized in that case that the law in question was, quote, clearly designed to permit indigent persons to receive the advantages of whatever health care may be presently accepted as appropriate in the medical community. End quote. 2 years later, in 1983, however, he would be the lone dissenter in a case where the court sustained the method of public school financing through local taxes. Sharply disagreeing with the majority, Judge Cole would write, under the present system, the state manifestly does not provide sufficient funds to jurisdictions throughout the state to ensure basic educational opportunity. End quote. Upon reaching the maximum judicial service age of 70, Judge Cole retired from the Court of Appeals of Maryland in February of 1991 and was succeeded by Judge Robert M. Bell of the Court of Special Appeals. Robert M. Bell himself would be elevated to Chief Judge in 1996, 5 years later, by Governor Paris Glendening, thus becoming the first and to date only African American to serve as Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals of Maryland. After retirement, Judge Cole would continue to serve in a judicial capacity on a per diem basis, as well as on several notable commissions and boards, most notably one which recommended revisions to the Baltimore City Charter. Unfortunately, he died on the 14th of February, 1999, at the age of 78. He was survived by his wife of 41 years, the former Doris Freeland Cole, and 3 daughters, Susan, Harriet, and Stephanie. All right. With Judge Cole's passing in 1999, numerous officials, including former judges, some of which he served with, some of which he just knew personally, as well as Baltimore politicians, greatly mourned his loss, okay, all citing his death as a tremendous loss to the legal community and referencing his groundbreaking status for African Americans entering into politics and in the judiciary in general. In conclusion, thus, the legacy of Judge Harry A. Cole is quite clear. He was a groundbreaker in both Maryland politics and the legal arena for blacks into areas previously thought unattainable. Okay, like I said before, 1977, there were never any African American or any other minority jurists appointed to Maryland's highest court. All right, that's 200 years, all right, for it serving as the highest court of our state. And it took 200 years to get its first minority member, all right? And unlike many individuals, when he attained positions of authority and prominence, Judge Cole never forgot where he came from and those who had helped him along the way. You know, he retained his sense of balance, which served to facilitate his image as a responsible and practical jurist. And lastly, he never turned a blind eye to discrimination and those viewed as society's outcasts. Okay? For all these reasons, Judge Harry A. Cole has more than earned an honorable place not only in Maryland history, but African American history in general. Okay? He's a very, very honorable man, and certainly one whose legacy will live on in perpetuity in this state. So I thank you so much for listening to this short biography of Judge Harry A. Cole, 1921 through 1999, Maryland's first black state senator and its first African-American member of the Court of Appeals, Maryland's highest court. So if you have any questions or controversies, you can leave them down below and I'll be happy to answer them. If you like this video, learned something, gained some insight from it, drop me a like. That will be greatly appreciated. And last but not least, if you've not subscribed to my YouTube channel up to this point, please do so now. Just click on that little red subscribe button and the little notification bell, and we'll be in business. Thanks again for listening, ladies and gentlemen. Take care, stay safe out there, and I will talk to you at the next video. Peace.